Hello, thank you for being in a new video. This time we have unboxing of the OnePlus 13. Let's start. This device has recently been announced in Mexico. Its launch price has been 23,999 pesos, including taxes. On the screen, you see the reference price in dollars just to give you an idea. But remember that the prices here are not the same as there. In this case, we are in front of a flagship, so its cost is relatively low. Although we must remember that, and the distribution is short. In the case of Mexico, it will only be distributed through Mercado Libre and Amazon. In the description, I leave you purchase link in case you are interested, but let's take it out of the box to know it a little more in depth. Although the box already anticipates that it will not have too much content because it is quite thin. And note that the first thing we find is the second box where comes the cable that is from USB-A to USB-C. In this sense, OnePlus still does not give the experience so modern. It would remain having C to C, but it is clear that it is a cable of very good thickness. Good caliber to be able to give all that energy that is needed for fast charging. However, as you realize, it does not include in charger, and that is an important issue, as OnePlus uses SuperVOOC charging, which is their own standard, to reach the highest power. Although you could use a power delivery charger, but it will not give you 100 watts. In the test we did, it gives about 25 watts. So if you need to buy the SuperBOD charger, specifically if you want to enjoy maximum charging power, that is something that definitely bothers a bit because there are very specific chargers that are compatible with this device. Although in Mexico there was the promotion that the first buyers got a charger for free, but there were limited parts. Notice that it also comes with this key to remove the SIM card tray. And that's basically all you see in this second box that comes inside the box. So let's put it away and continue to appreciate the rest of the contents. Next we meet the cell phone directly that comes with this cover where it reads OnePlus. The truth is that the packaging is nice. It is not perceived as an exaggeratedly cheap or poor quality device, quite the opposite. So let's remove it from this cover and we meet the cell phone directly, which has curved edges on the screen. In fact, both on the top and on the bottom and on the sides, we see this slight curvature that gives you a much more premium feel when you slide your finger. However, it comes with a mica attached, and this mica causes a bit of a strange feeling when swiping. So it is strange because if you remove the mica, you would have the full experience. It's very smooth on the edges when you swipe your finger, but you take away from its protection. So, as always, you decide what you prefer. For now, let's remove this sticker, and it is clear that we are in front of a very nice device. In this case, it has a soft cover on the back. In a moment, I'll tell you a little more details about the design and specifications of this device, but for now, I simply want you to finish appreciating that the box does not integrate more content. So it's a relatively simple case, although the cable is heavy, unlike other devices that have a simpler cable. But that will be basically it. So let's remove the box and let's focus on the cell phone and its specifications. I already have the device in my hands, so let's go through its specs point by point. To give you a quick glimpse of this device, it is 8.9mm thick and 210 grams in weight in this edition. I tell you this because this is an edition called Midnight Ocean, because this edition comes with the synthetic leather back cover. In fact, it is a very advanced synthetic leather. It is not perceived as plastic as some others. It has a very soft touch, and the truth gives a very premium feeling. The other two editions come with glass, so it's a thinner and slightly heavier edition, so the design is very nice, but it's not only nice, it's also durable. It integrates ceramic guard, which is the new protection that OnePlus uses in these devices for the glass. So although it does not have Gorilla Glass, I think it could give us a good sense of security here in front. It also has the IP and IP level against water and dust, so it not only resists a dip in the water, but could also withstand jets of hot water under pressure and would not be damaged. It's definitely a nice and sturdy device. The screen has a fairly large 682-inch diagonal with a very high resolution. In this case, it reaches 3168 x 1440 pixels. So it's a Quad HD screen that also has AMOLED technology and gives us a peak brightness of 4500 nits. Obviously, when you're watching HDR content and its refresh rate varies from 1 to 120 Hz. Note also that in this case it has the Pro XDR technology that is able to raise the brightness of some areas of the picture in order to give you a much more realistic feeling when viewing photos or videos on this device. It is a really very good screen. In this case, stereo sound is integrated with a speaker on the bottom, a speaker on the top, and I must say that the sound has good presence of bass frequencies, so it does not make any sacrifice in that sense. As you might have seen, it also integrates ultrasonic fingerprint reader inside the screen, so it doesn't need to brightly illuminate your finger, and also it would be detected with wet finger, and you will also notice that it is quite a bit faster. The front camera is 32 megapixels with f-aperture 2.4 and fixed focus. In this aspect, I think the device is still not that advanced, but anyway, it shows us a good level of detail. I would love to see autofocus have a much better experience, but that issue is still pending in these devices. On the back, we find the main 50 megapixel camera with Sony Lithia 808 sensor. It has f-aperture 1.6, autofocus and optical stabilization. Then we will find the ultra wide-angle camera with a Samsung ISOCELL JN5 sensor of 50 megapixels with aperture f1.6, and in this case autofocus, so it also serves as a macro camera. And finally, the telephoto camera with the Sony Lithia 600 sensor. Its focal length is 73mm, so it offers optical zoom plus or minus 3x. It has f2.6 aperture, autofocus and optical stabilization. But what better than to see the results of these cameras? First, we are looking at the ultra-wide camera that offers us a very good quality. Remember that it comes in collaboration with Hasselblad, so it has basically the same algorithm that we find in the Oppo Find X Pro, which for me is the best device. In terms of photography, I've tested at present. Now we see the photograph in 23mm and we continue to notice this good level of detail. The shadows are well marked, so they offer photographs with good contrast. Then the photograph at the 48mm setting, which is a digital zoom crop, but looks as if it were optical zoom. Next we come to 73mm, which is using the telephoto camera, and it still looks very good quality, and since it's a high resolution sensor, you can crop over it and still see very good detail. For example, in this case we're talking about digital zoom 6x, but that also looks like it's optical quality. Now you're looking at the picture with 10x zoom and it still looks like excellent detail. The truth is that Hasselblad and OnePlus and Oppo have done an excellent job in optimizing the cameras. So this first impression test leaves me with a very good feeling. Notice that even with the 30x zoom setting, we still see a very good quality. You see a photograph even still natural. In this case, you can already tell it's digital zoom, but the rendering it does is quite natural without exaggerating the details. So it looks very nice, and the most it gets is 120x digital zoom. And believe me, it also does a good job. It's clearly an AI enhanced photograph, but it doesn't look as weird or as artificial as we might find it on other devices. The truth is that I love the photographic system in this first impression. Regarding video recording, note that it can go up to 4K at 30 frames per second with the main camera, or in 4K at 30 frames per second with any of the other cameras, even up to 60 frames per second. While the front camera also has the ability to record in 4K at 60 frames per second, and also have the option of HDR video with both the rear camera and the rear camera, as with the front-facing camera. So as you can see, in terms of cameras and photography, it doesn't make any sacrifices. In fact, so far we haven't seen any sacrifices. The battery has a capacity of 6000 mAh divided into two cells of 3000 mAh each. We will have to test this capacity, because when they come divided into two, sometimes have a lower performance. But as I say, it will be best to see through testing if it has a good performance or not. It is also compatible with 100 watts charging, although the charger is sold separately. But in addition to cable charging, it supports 50 watts wireless charging. Although the charger is also sold separately, and it is also a proprietary protocol of OnePlus called AirBot, so you need a specific charger compatible with this level of charging. In fact, it also has reversible wireless charging, so you can place some other cell phone or headphones on the back of this cell phone and you can charge them. transfer power via wireless charging. The operating system is Oxygenos based on Android 15, so it comes updated from the factory. So far we have not found any weak point in this quick look at its specifications. In addition, it offers us 512 gigabytes of storage. In the case of Mexico, this is the only version that is distributed. Perhaps in other countries there are some other options and has 16 gigabytes of RAM memory, plus as you realize it still gives the possibility of adding memory. Virtual RAM, which I see as unnecessary personally, but there's the option there. Finally, the processor is the Snapdragon 8 Elite, the best in power today. Although as you realize in the benchmarks does not reach an exaggeratedly high score, but anyway, this is just a benchmark. In a single core it reached 2,931 points, which is very high, and in multi-core it reached 8,778 points, which to make this processor is not as powerful as we have seen in others, but I insist this is a benchmark. Nothing more is a pure reference test. The truth of the case is that the processor is very powerful. In Antutu reached 22,91,098 points, which confirms that it is a device that has a lot of power in the processor, although possibly by software optimizations does not give all the power so that the battery is not consumed so fast. In fact, as you realize in the battery mode, it comes default with the balanced mode, but you could also raise it to high performance mode that is going to give it all the power. So probably if we run these benchmarks with the high performance mode, is likely to achieve a slightly higher score. But I think overall I like this balance, because on other devices we've tested with this processor, the battery drains very quickly when we put very demanding tasks on it. But before we say goodbye to the video, we brought in a guest who is the last generation OnePlus 12, as you notice, retained the same essence of design with this circular module oriented slightly to the left. Personally, I liked more the fact that it had this plate, let's say metallic. In this case, it has been abandoned, and you will also notice that the last generation had slightly thinner edges due to the more accentuated curvature that had both the back cover and the screen. Now bet on slightly straighter edges, retaining the alert slider. But an improvement that is certainly appreciated is that we now have IP69 that gives much more resistance against water. And another difference, as I had already shown you, is that this new generation has ultrasonic fingerprint reader, so it is much faster and does not emit the annoying light. While the last generation notes that it was optical, so it emitted that light that at times is annoying, especially at night, and it is also not exaggeratedly fast. Note that you cannot unlock. I will say that it was not as instantaneous as the ultrasonic, but it was still good. The change in processor would be a natural evolution. Previously we had Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, now Snapdragon 8 Elite. Previously the battery was 5,400 mAh and now it is 6,000. Although not everything is based on those numbers, we will have to put it to the test to see if after testing we conclude that it does have a longer battery life. In terms of cameras, there are no substantial differences. In fact, what you will notice is that now the three sensors are 50 megapixels, while previously one was 48, another was 64, and another was 50. They are still high resolution sensors, but perhaps having the sensors with the same resolution allows it to work better in terms of the algorithms and processing it does. One visible difference you will notice is that the camera previously had this periscope format. Now it is a camera that will surely be more advanced to use less space, but maintains the same optical zoom with the same aperture. However, as I say, there is an internal improvement. As you will notice, there are no abysmal differences between one generation and another. That is happening in all the current high-end, but there are some interesting details to take into account in this new generation. For the moment, we have reached the end of this video. Remember that soon we will have available the full review. I hope you liked it, and we'll see you next time.